morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I have a super exciting presentation to do today. I'm joined by my longtime friend Paula Harris, who has another story. She is a investigator, but she's an investigator that runs around the world. I don't know how she she can't afford it, but she does it. She's all over the world, and she's been doing this probably as long as I have. When did you start this, Paula? What year did you start?
I started, when did I start this? Probably the running around in 1992. So 30 years, at least 35 years.
Yeah, and you've been everywhere, and you've been on a lot of the top stories. And the big story now is this ball, and you were there. I didn't even know until a week ago this thing even existed. I was involved in the first one, the Bates ball, which I will sort of reference. I was around in '75 when the National Enquirer got the ball because it was put up for the $1 million reward that the National Enquirer had for proof of extraterrestrials. So I knew that story, and I knew Bob Pratt very well, and I knew what they thought about that ball. I'll bring that up. But you were in Mexico. Let's go to Mexico and then we'll get some of the background, and then I'm going to go to share screen, and I'm going to show some photos, and we'll go through the photos to describe what this situation is and who's all involved in this thing. People will be very surprised how many high-level names are involved in this story. And unfortunately, they didn't put you on stage. And this is a very common thing. It's a men's game, and we've seen this over and over again where you are a major researcher, and it's unfortunate it happens, and we'll have to go with it. But I'm going to give you some attention today. You've always been a hero of mine. I just follow your work, and you've done the good deeds of putting it out. And you do conferences. Let's start maybe with your conference that we're going to be. We'll mention it later on in the show as well. You have a bunch of conferences. I just spoke at one of your ones talking about consciousness. You have a small conference that you hold at Crestone, Colorado, and your next one is in September. Can you basically talk about that before we get to the big story here?
Yeah, I used to do these huge conferences in Laughlin, Nevada, and I used to bring, state of the art people, new people, people mostly international. So now I have these conferences in gorgeous place, Crestone, Colorado, and my next one is August 24th, and it is international because I have Julian Chameroy, who's a contactee from Paris, but he's bringing 15 Japanese people. So we have a conference that deals with international. I'm going to talk about the Buga there. I'll talk about my research with human type aliens. I'll talk about different things. And then we have Cynthia Sue Larson, who will talk about the Mandela effect. She's brilliant, Berkeley graduate, and she is going to talk about that. And then we have Julian Chameroy. Now, these are intimate conferences. There are 40 people and more, and we have plenty of rooms. So go to www.starworksusa.com because that's the company that I'm doing these smaller conferences in Colorado. And you have access to us because we're right there. And it's a conference room, Colorado College. You can come up and ask us questions. We're accessible. It's reasonable. It's just that it's in the deep mountains. It's about 4 hours out of Denver. We have rooms, so sign up for the conference on consciousness, the journey to consciousness. And Grant, me and you have to talk about it. The basic thing is consciousness.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about data, and you're going to see me with my glasses reading the data because I don't want to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But in the bottom line, I mean, even finding this Buga in Colombia in April, and by the way, they found it in April and they gave it to Jaime Maussan because his establishment is astronomical in Mexico City. His studios are part of an entire mall, and he has hundreds of people working for him. But most of all, when we go to talk about this, and I hope you also talk about the sphere that you're going to talk about, is that this was studied by Mexico Independent University. In other words, it was studied scientifically. And what I can tell everybody, is who was there, and I'll tell you who was there. And then I will tell you what they found out so far. And then, Grant, from what I say, you can ask me some questions. Who was there? But I didn't go there for this. I went there because I was shooting my show. I have a show in Mexico City, and I was talking about the telepathy tapes. That was one of my one of my shows. I was talking about telepathy tapes, and I was talking about this, and then I find out Friday is a press conference, and Jaime shows me the sphere, so people have seen me with the sphere alone. I was in the room alone with the sphere on Thursday. And then Dr. Stephen Greer with two NASA scientists came in on Friday. And Danny Sheehan, Paradigm Institute, was very interested, and he was there. But well, who was there was Burleson. Eric Burleson is a Republican congressman from Tennessee. So a government representative was there. And my friend Pier Giorgio Caria from Italy, who I'd worked with, has a studio there, and he had analyzed the original film footage of the sphere flying. Now, I mean, you could, if you see the footage, you could never have done CGI on this thing. It was all over the map. But we have to do it the way it's supposed to be done scientifically. You can't just assume. So
Yeah.
Giorgio and his group from Italy were there. They were shooting a documentary, like I think Stephen is shooting a documentary. And when people start getting skeptical, I feel like saying, just keep quiet and look at the data. I don't know what it is. I have no conclusions. It's just weird. And I will tell you, I refuse to touch it because so many people had headaches, nausea, they had physical reactions to it. So I put my hand, if you see the video, I put my hand on top, but I was not gonna pick it up. I don't need that kind of proof. What I need, and by the way, this is what and I'm sick of people really bashing Jaime Maussan, because both of us have
Yeah.
to cover the story, even if it turns out to be a hoax. We can't just look at that and say, oh, we don't feel like doing it. Oh, yeah, it might ruin our career. We don't do that as journalists. We have to cover it in order to take the responsibility for covering it, covering the story the way it is. And Jaime, who has the ability, can go one step further and pay for analysis. I gave him the Trinity piece. I gave him a bone, a giant bone. He can pay for the analysis. He can go, and he has all these scientists that work with him. And people need to know this was the independent university of Mexico City. This place has no ties to any politics at all. And the two scientists, and they were on the stage. I was able to speak to them. Rodolfo Garrigo was one of the scientists, and he's the one that went on the stage and talked about what I'm going to mention right now. It's UNA, Unified National Autonomous University of Mexico. And that's one of the reasons I think we can't get a whole bunch done if, you know, whatever the results are controversial. No university wants to take this on, but these people do. So the other material scientists, because these are materials, this is aluminum, but an aluminum is so hard that they said it isn't.
Aluminum or stainless steel? Is it I thought it was stainless steel.
No, it's aluminum.
It's aluminum. Okay.
And one of the analysis is the hardness of the aluminum they
Okay.
did, and that they don't know any aluminum that's this hard.
Yeah.
So the other one is material scientist Alejandro Martin. And so Grant and I are going to give you 3 links so you get the exact words, the exact analysis. I mean, I went on Facebook and they said it looks like a plastic chandelier. I mean, I think people, you know, what is it? And if you're wondering and going to debunk, will you go down there and will you speak Spanish? because the guy that was on the stage was speaking Spanish, and we had what do you call it?
The translators.
We had the simultaneous translation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't science fiction we were listening to. We were listening to hard science. And I'm getting questions from people I work with, and I'm going, go find out. Go find out. I don't know hard science, but I will try to give you what I can give you.
Okay.
The man that found it, he basically found it in a field. He was in my hotel, so I could talk to him. He didn't speak English, but I understand Spanish. And it was levitating. It was levitating. So it was levitating. It is an aluminum, a very hard aluminum. The tomography X-ray showed that inside was not solid, that inside had a lot of fiber optics, and fiber optics that were doing different things, and fiber optics that they were used to seeing. And they don't know what the message was or the function. Now, the message is because of the glyphs. It hit a power line. It has these glyphs. My friend that was with me from California said it was Phoenician. Now, what are possible Phoenician glyphs doing on an incredible, piece of technology? The technology was flying. The video, the researchers from the National Autonomous University of Mexico suggested it didn't have radiation, so we're not dealing with radiation, but it was a kind of invisible energy that sucked all the water out of the grass and soil. So, I mean, if there's scientists listen to this, please go on these links, because you're going to get it from the horse's mouth. Don't ever get it secondhand. I am not a scientist. I'm just reading what I took notes on. It sucked all the water out of the grass and soil, leaving them dead, unable to grow back. The microscope had looking at fiber optics through LEDs. Electronic, it was an aluminum alloy with exceptional hardness. I don't know what 330 on the Rockwell hardness scale is. I don't know what that is. You're going to have to go look at that. They said there's nothing available today like that. So if there's nothing available today like that, this is advanced technology. And I personally don't think it's necessarily ET. Could be a back engineered thing that they lost track of. So think about that. It's twice as hard as any aerospace aluminum. So inside the sphere, there's fiber optics with crystalline structures that have a binding polymer matrix. So it transmits light, it reflects lights. So it's kind of an engineered component. It senses different sizes of pure glass. In other words, the fiber optics look like pure glass. So presence of these fibers and sophisticated structures need more research. Now, the problem is, and I'm going to insert this, Grant, that while we were there, 2 fake policemen tried to come and take it and steal it.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
What, impersonating Mexican police?
Yes, they were going to take it, and it was intercepted.
Oh,
the guy that was dealing with this originally, the guy that is custodian of this, even said his life was threatened. His name, I'd interview him. His name is David Velez. He got hold of the sphere. He said companies called him and said, "It's ours. You give it back, or we'll kill you. We'll kill your family." So David Velez was on stage. In fact, here's a picture of David, but you can see him. You can see him talking about this in the live. If they're threatening his life, they're threatening his family. They are saying it belongs to us. There he is, right there. He's got it, and he said, "Look, the only way I could stay alive is give it to Jaime Maussan." You can't keep this kind of technology and expect to have it in your backyard. he's the custodian of it, but the actual guy that found it in his field, you know, he's basically talked to us, and that is Jose Restrepo. He was in my hotel, so I was able to talk to him. And
Okay,
of course,
what was his story? Like this happens in Colombia, right? Give me the beginning of the story with the guy who finds it.
yeah, it was floating. It hit some wires. It hit some telephone kind of cable wires, and then it came down slowly. But he was able to film it with his cell phone, so it was on location. And he had it, and David took it with him. I mean, they got together because they didn't know what to do with it. So when when it's this dangerous and when it's this mysterious, and the reason why everybody in the world is interested is because it's I mean, the way that Greer talked about it is a possible free energy device. And so we're dealing with something that floats and has its own trajectory, and it could be controlled by something, who knows, but it levitates without a power source. It didn't have batteries, okay? It didn't have stuff inside that they could understand. So when one of the scientists was on stage, I was fascinated because what he did was spend a lot of time, and I'm going to give you the link on this, talking about Tesla technology. And he said, Tesla technology will explain this. And so I thought, wow, if he's going to talk about Tesla technology, and we're going back to Tesla, then why didn't they listen to him in the first place? It's so it models behavior of anti-gravity. So that's one of the reasons Dr. Greer is interested in it. Of course, everybody would be interested in it. It's a new technology. Verifiable scientific details about the material. It's really hard, complex, optical, suggests advanced data handling. This thing can do data, collect data. So I'm going, well, is it spying? You know, if it's collecting data, how is it doing it? So its weight mysteriously increases from 2 kilo to 10 kilo over days. How does the thing get, heavier? How does it get heavier? And you can see the, what do you call it? The design, but there's
Yeah.
also a microchip. There's a chip on the top.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you can see that. So it was really great that the U.S. congressman was there, and I know that both he and Danny Sheehan, who's gone to Congress many times for the disclosure paradigm, his Paradigm Research Institute, wants to get this open. Now they're not moving the sphere out of Mexico City. That was one of the things I even talked to Jaime about. I said, look. If the minute you let go of that, you don't know where it goes. So it is being kept there, and it is being kept there for people to come down. For instance, I think the NASA scientists that were with Greer took scrapings, but I mean, scrapings is nothing around you see. I don't know if you have the picture around what they call the equator. See those little holes around the equator. Jaime has a magnifying glass that looks at those little holes, and they're all lit up with fiber optics, and so you can see them from the equator on this thing. So what I suggest for the scientists that are watching this, see the equator, he's got
Yep.
this contraption that and I think maybe the holes are on top too, that he can put the light down and see the fiber optics. And that little camera is like your phone. It's like
Wow.
you can see what's inside because it's not hollow. There's technology inside that's extremely sophisticated. And of course, they're interested in that because they want to know how it levitates, that they want to know how it moves. I mean, it doesn't seem to be remote controlled of any kind, but so I was there, and I prefer to give you the 3 links that I've collected for you, Grant, and you can ask me questions. I was just, I didn't touch it. Not touching it. It's like, I don't know if it's alive, if it has a reaction to you. I thought, no, I'm not touching this thing. But I did see, by the way, if you notice on the table, I have the book Conversations with Colonel Corso in Spanish there. It's on the table because Jaime wanted to interview me because in 1998, and that's the ultimate disclosure, guys, 1997, 98, when Philip Corso at the Republic of San Marino, in front of the whole world, this not in America, but in the Republic of San Marino, which is located in Italy, he says, I had a bunch of fiber optics that came from a spaceship. Period. Period. He said it out of his mouth. I mean, and he worked in the Pentagon. He's not somebody off the street. And it isn't about money. It was about his grandsons. You want to tell the truth. So I think that, I was with him for 2 years. I always wonder, you go into disclosure here, disclosure there. What happened to Colonel Corso? Get the book, Conversations with Colonel Corso. And he'll tell you what he had in quote unquote the nut file. Plus, he had fiber optics, high tenacity fibers, which is the outfit or whatever was glued to the being. He had the lens, which he said was night screening. And guess what? He was talking to Bobby Kennedy because he was part of the intelligence community there. So you think Jack didn't know? I mean, when I start watching what's out there as the latest flavor of ice cream, I go, oh my God, they don't do their homework. Here, I'm doing an interview. I don't know if you can click on it, but
Let's see. I have to make sure I gotta make sure I got sound here.
Okay.
And you tell me whether you got.
Will help us in our search for the truth.
Based on your research
For the truth.
of the truth, the Buga sphere would have an extraterrestrial origin.
Okay.
Why or why not?
Yes. Well, it's important, as I mentioned before, you must look at everything and connect everything for the truth. Everybody wants the truth, but it is important because here in Mexico City, it is science, it is feasibility.
In Mexico, scientists of the National University study this Buga sphere.
Yes, but university is a good place because a university is where people also are looking for the truth. There is no politics. It is, we are putting together what this sphere is and how important it is. For my part, it's the fiber optics inside. Because I was with Colonel Philip Corso and we talked about fiber optics.
Josh, in this case, are there any similarities between the Buga sphere and other anomalous objects found around the world, such as the one sphere that was found in Florida?
And you're talking about the Betts sphere in Florida?
Yeah.
And it may be. They do seem to be visually similar. They seem to be about the same size. They're both silver, and they both exhibit some strange phenomena. So there may be some connection between those two.
Okay. And the mummies? What about the mummies? Because you study this.
That's right. We've been studying the mummies, and it's an ongoing investigation. It's something that we're learning new things all the time. And we're hoping to look at some more today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, without doubt, it's pure gold talking with you, Paola. And Josh, thank you very much for this interview. Please enjoy Mexico, enjoy this event because it's for us, for all the people, for the science, for the ufology, and welcome to Mexico.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Regresamos contigo, René.
Muchísimas gracias, mi querida Lisette. Y mire, Paola Harris también presente entre los grandes invitados. Claro, pues ella es parte de la familia de Maussan Televisión, así como estamos presentes pues toda la familia de conductores, productores, todo el staff también, desde luego, de este gran canal de televisión, porque somos parte.
Okay.
Explain who Josh is. When we were there, of course, they're going to bring out the mummies, but I was with the doctor that examined the mummies because he's doing work for me on the giant bone that was given to me in Sardinia. And this is an independent doctor who's going to do carbon dating, DNA testing, and all that. and he was there. He was there. So the people that were there wanted to see the bodies of the mummies, which are, by the way, anomalous. So those guys are one of the one I saw was in the hospital. They had to bring it out to show me. I don't do this kind of work, so I am not going to be the expert on it, but it is being done scientifically. In other words, the testing that this doctor showed me was all carbon, but it costs a mint, costs so much money that only someone like Jaime could do it. Just the electron microscope is $5,000. That's why you have to get funding to do this. But Josh is the son of the American scientist from the University of Colorado. He lives here in Colorado Springs that verified the mummies that went down there. Well, their name is McDowell, and people do that's a separate research. But Josh and his father, I had met them another time. His father is very, very scientific, reputable, just a genius to talk to. And Josh was there representing his dad. He hadn't been there. That's why they went to the mummies. These mysteries need to be researched with the money that people can research them with in the structures and independent universities. That's why I kept saying there's no politics here. They are not getting grants from the government for like free energy or all the politics we have. Independent universities who do not make a final pronouncement. In other words, they didn't say it was ET, Grant. They didn't say it came from outer space. They just said we don't have anything like that. And high grade aluminum, even in aerospace, is not this hard. So if my dream is they all come together and study it together. But you got to go there. Number one, you got to go there, and you have to speak Spanish or understand Spanish. One of the criticisms Jaime's gotten in the past for everything he's done is when he's presented the experts, nobody understands the language. But I do. I mean, because of Italian, I understand what they're saying. So the thing is, you have to be able. What if it was in Turkey? What you're going to say? Just it's a hoax, and you don't understand Turkish? So I don't understand the logic behind the debunking of these things. If you don't bring a Spanish translator, if you don't go to the university, and I happen to go to the hospital where the one mummy was, and get all the details, because I want to talk to the doctor about analyzing other stuff, so we can analyze it and have the truth, not some just overall opinion. Research is not done on opinion. You have to get all of the ducks in a row and connect all the dots. And finally, you can ask me questions, but what do I think? This is opinion. I think it got loose from some back engineering place. And they trying to get it back. I don't think necessarily comes from outer space. If it does, that's amazing, but how can you even prove that? Then where does it come from? If it's not ours, but if it's theirs, where does it come from? Area 51, I mean, where does it come from? So it's a big mystery. So Paula Harris is just going to say it's a big mystery. It needs to be looked at scientifically. And if you're in Mexico, learn Spanish.
Well, but there are people who know more about the ball than the president. I mean, they're like, armchair researchers who have an opinion on everything, and so that's what makes me happy about you is that you spent a lot of money. You spent almost all the money you have in life to do this. I mean, you're not very, you didn't make $1 million out of this thing. You lost $1 million, and you ran these big conferences, and you're still doing it, even though it's financially not to your advantage to continue this. So I'll always respect you for that, and I can help you wherever I can to move because you're one of the few people that's out there actually doing research. I mean, and people will criticize Greer, but at least Greer showed up. I mean, Greer went there and he brought scientists there, and he's just basically offering to do research. That's all you want. It's not like you're going to make an opinion. One of the things that's sort of interested me when you talked about the guy with this thing coming down reminds me of Desta and I were at Tucson at the University of Arizona. They were looking at James McDonald's files, and it was Desta that found the one. And it reminds me of this. And what that was look, I don't know if you've seen it, it looked like a spike. It was a photograph. I remember the archivist was really upset because we had these photographs all over the table, and you're not allowed to take more than one file out at a time and put that back in the file. And it's like this, almost like like a prison where we had these 100,000 rules about how to look at James McDonald's files. But anyway, it looked like a spike, and on the end it had like bubbles, like it had the metal had sort of bubbled on the end, and it had come down in 1939 and into a farmer's field in Illinois, I believe it was, and he gave it to his daughter in Tucson. She took it to NASA in 1967, and James McDonald looked at it, and he didn't even know. We talk about reports and manifestations where they'll make stuff appear, and he didn't even know that. He just had it in the file as this weird thing, and it was the same description. It was like it was metal, it was nickel, it was 98% hard nickel, and they took it to the Nickel Company of America or whatever, and they said, "We can't tell you anything. We just tell you there's nothing that we have in 1939 that would come out of the sky that was that this purity of nickel." So it's almost like the same thing where it's very hard. It has these weird components to it where you really can't figure it out. And then you get into this whole thing about the gifting field, whether this was actually gifted to us. And you're never going to figure it out. The beings, the intelligence doesn't want you to figure it out. It just wants you to go have people having fights and everybody's talking about it. And it's almost like the Bates ball, because I'll talk to you a little bit about the Bates ball. This was 1974. This is the year before I actually got involved, and this is a ball. They mentioned it in the film there, where this they call it the Bates ball, and it came down in Florida. Is recovered in 1974, and what happened was the National Enquirer had $1 million reward for proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, and this ball was turned in for the award. And I knew Bob Pratt because in 75, 76 he was up in Manitoba, and so when we were doing UFO research, we had probably the first people to report. Now everybody's talking about orbs. We had these things on the ground. We call them ground lights. The word orb didn't even exist. And we were studying these things and flashing lights at them, and they would flash back and stuff like that. And I was absolutely sure that what we were dealing with was a Bates ball. Because it would go in front of the car, it would stay the same distance away. It would look like it was. I actually saw it about 50 feet away, and it looked a little bit bigger than a basketball. Bright orange, intense light coming from the inside, but it didn't light up the ground or anything like that. And so when I saw it up really close the first night, and that was the only time I ever really got close to it, it was sort of like playing with us. It'd be on the bridge, and then it was under the bridge, and then it was, and we couldn't find this thing. It would turn its light off. And I actually went there one day to the area on this road where we were doing this research for this thing because it was there all the time. And I was actually looking. There was a bunch of there's no farms or anything. It was just abandoned farmhouse there, and I was in this abandoned farmhouse looking under the floors, and I said, "It's got to be hiding here somewhere." And I thought it was the Bates ball, but it was the same controversy in '75. I don't think we're going to go anywhere else with it, but it's the same thing. It piques people's curiosity. It makes people discuss the thing, and that may be what it is. They don't want you to figure it out. They just put this weird ball down that has all these weird things to it, and it's to get us to think. Like the phenomenon is using awe and curiosity. It's making you go, "What is going on? I'm so curious. I want to know the answer." But I found out it was kind of weird that J. Allen Hynek had actually stated he was on the Blue Book, the Blue Ribbon panel for National Enquirer, and he actually said it was a hoax. But the thing was, it was so hard. MUFON director Walt Anders was given the following statistics. The ball was 7.96 inches in diameter, weighed 21 pounds, has an outer shell about a half-inch thick, which would apparently withstand a pressure of 120,000 pounds per square inch. There was 3 or 4 smaller spheres inside the ball, which rattled, and it would make the ball would move around when shaken. There was no detachable seams to indicate a weld or a plug. I remember that they couldn't figure out how it had been put together because there's no seams, there's no welds. The ball was magnetized, had a north and south magnetic pole, which were about 150 degrees apart. The Bates said the ball can roll around on a table, apparently under its own power, in a non-concentric circle for as long as 10 minutes without rolling off the table. So it had all these bizarre characteristics. It was putting off a frequency of 15,000 hertz. And it had just all these bizarre things. I remember talking to Bob Pratt. Now, Hynek said he thought it was a hoax, but when I talked to Bob Pratt, and Bob Pratt was no dummy, he was a very high-end reporter, and he said the National Enquirer was totally puzzled by this thing. They had no idea what to do with it. And they couldn't get permission to drill into it. That's what they wanted to do. So all they really did, they X-rayed it, and they determined that this stuff was on the inside of it. So I spent a bit of time. I'll probably spend a little more time to find out what happened to the Bates ball. And someone, I asked AI, and they said, "Oh, there was a story they threw it out." And I'm going, "They didn't throw it out. Come on." It was like, but the Bates ball has sort of disappeared. And the last I heard, the National Enquirer still had this Bates ball, and it was found in Florida. What they were doing. They were doing something, looking at their property or something, at grass or something, burnt grass or something, and they found this ball which was turned in. And there's been one in Australia, and I can't remember what the other one was, but Russia. And they've all been determined. The hoax. The people come out and said it's all hoaxes. It's Navy balls that they drop into the sea and all this kind of stuff. But I think this is going to be the same thing. It's going to be this very curious type thing, almost like the autopsy thing, the beings. First they were discounted, and then now people are saying, no, this is a real thing. They're not put together, not glued, didn't glue the fingers on and stuff like that. And it just gets more mysterious and more mysterious and more mysterious. And I think that's part of what the phenomenon is trying to do. It's doing these things almost like if you watch I'm doing a big article on the Skywatcher, and they say, oh, we were pulling these things down with sonics and with electrical signals, and somebody said three gigahertz was the signal. But anyway, they're bringing these things. They said we're bringing them down. I said you're not bringing them down. They're 5 kilometers away. The phenomenon is not stupid. They know that you're going to try to shoot this thing down. Or you're going to try to grab it. So yeah, they can bring these things down, but they're always no closer than 5 kilometers. So they're trying to film these objects from 5 kilometers away, and that's this thing that I call the theory of wow, or like the Jesus circus, where Jesus walks on water, he feeds 5,000 people, he raises Lazarus from the dead, and all these miracle things, and then you give the message. And that's what they're doing. They're doing these weird things where everybody's going, what is going on? And everybody's very interested. And then the message will come from the experiencers, who everybody always ignores, the people who are actually interacting with the intelligence, that have had face-to-face conversations with these people. That's where we still have to make a move, where it's almost like women aren't allowed on the stage, and neither are experiencers. You'll never have anybody on stage that is an experiencer. It's always these sort of scientists who have opinions, and opinions don't mean anything. Who cares what you think? You look at the data, but I'm sure that a lot of this has to do with this gifting thing, like the apports. One of the photos I had was of you. You were involved in one of the port stories that we had, where remember, we had the thing with the feathers. We had about 12 or 15 different people with the feathers, and one of the things was on the morning that we were leaving, Desta and I were leaving, you had a big feather shirt on. Yeah, and we said, like, holy cows, because we had all these feather things. Feathers were appearing and dropping down in front of people and stuff like that. Yeah, and yeah, there you go.
I have feathers on my shirt.
There you go. And then that was the thing that we couldn't believe it, because another feather. And then we found we had another experience when it happened in Tucson a couple of days later when we went to Tucson. But it's that kind of thing that they use this weird sort of messaging thing where they're giving us these things. But I appreciate the fact that you're on top of this, because this is going to be a big story. I mean, people are going to be controversial. They're going to be giving all opinions. Like the one I looked at just a little bit, and they were talking about the scratches on it. And they said, well, how could we have scratches? But it hit the line, hit you said they hit the hydro lines or whatever, and then Greer was taking samples or whatever. So there's going to be a lot of controversy, but the controversy really doesn't matter. The story is going to stay alive, because this is very anomalous by what you've described. That it's very hard to explain that this would be military or anything like that. I think it was almost like it was given to us to start another controversy of getting us talking about it, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to talk about it, and that's how consciousness rises. It's like Max Planck said, science, and Max Planck was the father of quantum physics, and he had the same problem. People criticizing him and calling him crazy and stuff like that. And that's when he said, science does not advance by you convincing your opponent that you're right. Science advances when your opponent dies. One funeral at a time, that science advances, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. So we'll have all these controversies, and gradually you can see the consciousness rising that now everybody admits there's UFOs, everybody knows there's probably bodies and crafts, everybody, and we're starting to know all this kind of stuff, even like near-death experiences. You may not believe in them, but now the consciousness is rising on all these different phenomena that people are realizing it may not be the physical world you think it is. It's much more magnificent a world than what you think it is. And that was the whole idea about the apports, dropping the feathers on this guy that came from England. He never left England. He had to come and he had the feathers. They were all these, they told him to come to see me, and I didn't want to see him. You remember you were trying to get me to meet this guy, and I said, oh no, I'm not interested in photographs. And then he has this story about these feathers falling, and suddenly the feathers started falling in Laughlin, and you had the feather shirt on. It was that kind of thing where they're dropping apports and manifestations, little pieces that they put to get you interested. And that's what happened to me. It happens to you, where you see something or you hear something, and suddenly you get dragged into it and you can't let it go. And you start going, and your children aren't interested. Your child isn't interested. My child, it was only maybe a week ago, he had one of his friends. Now live on the West Coast. One of his friends came from Winnipeg, where we used to live, to visit, and he knew I was into UFOs. He said, well, yeah, I hear the UFOs, they're discussing it. My son goes, oh, here we go again. It's like, and then the guy started talking, and then the guy said, hang on. He said, you lost me 3 sentences ago. And that's what we got to realize, is that people don't read today. They sit on their phones. Jim Semivan brings us up that 54% of people in the United States read at a grade 6 level, and 21% of people in the United States are functionally illiterate. And we're sort of listening to these people and their opinions or whatever. And we got to realize that this phenomena is much more powerful than what we think it is. Almost like, I think you would agree with me, that whatever this is, it teaches you that the world is not what you think it is. It is much more complex. It's much more grand. And these beings are trying to teach us something. They're trying to indirectly move us along. And I think, to me, that's what fascinates me about this ball, because I knew about the Bates ball for years, and I always used to think, I wonder what happened to that Bates ball, and it was this weird thing. It would move around, it would on its own, and they filmed all this sort of stuff. And then people would say, well, the table was crooked and all this crazy stuff. But uh, fascinating. What was Danny Sheehan? Did he get an invite to go there? And did he make any opinion on this?
And now this is the biggest story that there is. But let me add one more thing. Even if this is an industrial thing, what are those glyphs doing there? And they're, what kind of message are we getting? Why don't you just make it all silver or whatever, aluminum? That's really, really hard.
Well, even a couple of days ago was the first crop circle in Great Britain, and that's the whole thing. It's the same thing. Nobody can figure out the crop circles, but everybody goes, man, is that amazing? And whether it was hoaxed or not, it's absolutely amazing. Same as here. They're putting these symbols on, and people are going to try to figure out what the symbol is. And it's to get you to think. You're never going to like the crop circles. You're not really going to figure it out. Nobody's ever been arrested for a crop circle. Nobody's ever going to figure it out, but everybody's figures. There's got to be some messages, and people got this thing. The same here. People are you're going to see a lot of interpretations of what those symbols mean, and the writing on there. Like Danny Sheehan got the writing, and you got this writing on there. And I've got people who do this writing. I've got 2 videos that maybe I'll link where they actually do this writing, and it looks a lot like that writing that's on that ball.
Yeah, so I think I'm safe by saying it's a mystery. You can't come to
Yeah.
a conclusion. It's just to raise your consciousness. However, it is information gathering because of the different kinds of fiber optics they saw. They're all different kinds, and they're lit up. So it's gathering information, possibly transmitting it somewhere. It's like a spy,
Yeah.
in a way. And then I remember when I was doing my Latin American research, that a lot of the contactees would see a ball, a canepula, what they would call a ball.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like it would be like a probe. So maybe there'll be a whole new study, and I hope scientists do it, of probes to see where probes come from. Maybe some of the probes are from us, and it's a spying device. But maybe some of the probes aren't from here.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, that's you mentioned. What was the name of the again? Because that's Mission Rama. That was Ricardo, and these have been around since the 1970s, where they're talking about these. They even asked me, and what was the name of it again?
It's a canep. They call it a canepala, which is a,
Canepa. Yeah,
and
that's they asked me when I was there about and that's when I first heard the word. So they've had this idea of these things all along that these balls that are moving around and that's what we used to think that in 75 there was big objects flying around and then in 76 suddenly these things appeared on the ground and I thought, "Oh, these things are just there so you can't see them very easily. They're sort of everybody thinks they look like farm lights or look like cars coming down the road and so they can sort of hide. So that we thought the same thing that these we called them. In fact, I went to the guy Wilbur Smith, the guy who did his metallurgic analysis. I went to him and I said, "Hey, Art," I said, "we got these things and we call them ground lights and they're on the ground and they flash back at you. You can flash at them. They'll flash back at you." And he said, "Oh, monitors." And I said, "Monitors?" And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I didn't want to sound stupid. He said, "Oh, we had those back in the 1950s. Wilbur Smith, they used to sit on the windowsill when we had UFO meetings, and they actually got one in Wilbur Smith describes it. It was in the front ditch, and the light was on, and they came out and they said, 'Look at it,' and the light went off. So he said, we've had this since the 1950s. And even his kid mentioned, he said, 'Dad, you tell him about that one that you saw the little ball that came and then he looked at the kid. He didn't say anything. The kid just backed out of the room because this guy was like a sort of had a security clearance and stuff. He would lock the door. Nobody was allowed to come in the room when we were there. But that's what he said. There are monitors and it's the same thing. So this is back in the 1950, 54 period where they had these things and now they have them. It's almost like they're playing it up because now what's the big story? The big story is the orbs, the New Jersey orbs, the orbs flying around the Nimitz and stuff. And they say, "Oh, they want an orb. Let's give them an orb and drop this thing."
I know. That's why I said, these guys came there, but at least they came. And
Yeah.
spoke to so anything you get out of Danny Sheehan or Stephen Greer or, Congressman Burleson is because they're there. And they talk to the scientists and they saw the thing. And I know it's hard for people to do field research, but that is the only way you're going to get the truth. Second and third hand opinion is based on nothing. It's based on, we don't, in other words, this is so anomalous. We don't have anything to compare it to. Yeah. So if we have nothing to compare it to, then what do you want to say? I mean, you can't throw out statements, plastic chandelier. Hey, they're going to, the whole world is going to go there. It's going to go to an independent universe. You have to think logically, and I like to believe that I use a lot of logic in what I do. My job is just to present the data. All my books are interviews. I have 7 books. They're all interviews with the people that were there at the time that had the experience. And, it's just like you with Wilbur Smith. None of this is new, but it is now. It is now. So I'm hoping there'll be a whole group of research scientists that will go there because Jaime opens the doors. He's not keeping it. He's making money off it. He just wants to share this with people. I watch him. The man is honest. I'm sorry. But we're international journalists that do the job. If it turns out to be a hoax, at least we did the job. But you can't base a hoax on nothing. You got to base a hoax on data. And other universities and other people that come down and and my dream is always that everybody get together and internationally come out with disclosure. It can't be one country. It can't be one group of people. They all have to come together and say, this is the reality. We're studying it. We don't know everything because I'll tell you right now, after 45 years, you ask me what's going on, I can't tell you. I have no idea. I can just connect dots. I'm here to connect all the dots. The South American research, which I learned a lot from because they're very open. Yeah. And even going to Tokyo, which I was in Tokyo last year, Europe, just connecting these stories. And nothing is happening in the UFO field right now. So you'll see everybody jumping on it with opinion. Everybody. They'll all have an opinion. It's like, I'm going, well, unless you're there, of course, I'm not going to touch the thing. It's like, I don't touch it. But I'll do the best I can, Grant. I'll do the best I can to give the people the data. Then they need to go do some more research. And they just got a data from you from the 1950s, for God's sakes. I mean, that's why I admire Stephen Greer. He knows everything that he talks about with the hidden technology. He's telling the truth. I mean, this has been hidden for a long time. And I'm glad they're mentioning Colonel Corso. He was a hero. And this is 1998, 1997. You're talking about disclosure? We had all kinds of people back then. We had Edgar Mitchell, we had Clifford Stone, we had Robert Dean. We had all of these people that were close friends of mine. And in a funny kind of way, I feel like I'm their voice, that I'm still remembering what they told me. I'm still remembering and sharing. These are military people. These are intelligence people. When I went to Latin America, then I began doing the contactee research. But before that, it was all legitimate witnesses.
Yeah, and then you and I are the disclosure. I'm sure that when you die, they're going to say you did a good job because you did the best you could with what you had, and you pushed the thing forward. It's almost like that may be what it's about. Like the intelligence is still covering up as well. Like they don't. That's the thing. They don't really. They'll stay 5 kilometers away. They'll play these little games, and what they're doing is they're making you realize the world is not the way you think it is. And you and I have brought that out by people's testimony. So I appreciate. In fact, I've mentioned this so many times. I always say we should do a book on the Mount Shasta story. Because to me, two of the three biggest sightings that I say in 50 years were two that you were involved in. And the third one you weren't there, but it was at Mount Shasta. It was the same thing, the old Zendra thing, and that's to me is a significant story because it gives you indications that this is very, very complex, that these people are very, very intelligent, and that the world, you almost marvel at it. Like you say, the biblical thing, the grandeur of the universe. You have no idea. Once you start getting here, you realize that you and I are on the very edge of science. We're on the very edge of discovery, and that maybe even, 1,000 years from now, you're living another life, and then, you get a regression, and you goes back and says, "You were Paula Harris." I was Paula Harris. Oh, that's pretty cool. And that's what I think it's going to be. It's like we're moving the ball ahead. We've done the work. We're not sitting around doing nothing. We're moving it, and the disclosure is coming. You gradually, if you go back to 1975, we knew nothing. Now we know an awful lot of what's going on based upon what the South American people have said, the contactees, the people from the 1950s and stuff like that, and these ideas of the ball and stuff like that. We know so much more, but it's just a bigger mystery. It's not really that it's really been solved, and maybe that's not intended to be solved. That one guy said that's what you figure when you die. But we have been. I can't think of a more exciting life than we've had in terms of being on the very edge of these magnificent stories where you're sort of like everybody's trying to get information, and which is one of the questions I want to ask you. You're doing a show. Talk a little bit about your show, and you're going back to Mexico. How often? Once a month, and maybe we can do an update every month. You can talk to Jaime and say we're all at the ball, and we can do a little series as you go along. And so, talk a little bit about your show in Mexico that you do on Jaime's network there.
Well, I've been at this for 45 years. And so I really, I did the episode on the telepathy tapes, but I'm also friends with Uri Geller, and I also am very close friends with Russell Targ. So I knew the whole Stanford Research Institute group, and telepathy is so important. This is where you connect the dots. Telepathy is important. And then I talked about, different pilots' testimony. And I can give you some footage of a Southwest pilot that's a friend of mine in the cockpit when he sees the UFO in broad daylight, if you want to show that, because I'm showing it. All the stuff that I'm showing is real stuff. And it's so amazing that I have to go outside the country to do anything, because what I have, like the friendship case in Italy and everything, is considered old stuff. But my favorite to cover, and I'm just going to say this because this is going to be my next couple of episodes, is the giant rock contactees. Because I brought one of them back, the surviving one, Robert Short, in 2014. In those days, the contactees were talking to the aliens on crystal radio. You can make your own crystal radio. I lived in those days. And when the FBI said to Robert Short, you can't do that anymore, and ETs wanted to use their vocal cords, I took Robert Short back. And the reason why I'm telling you this, I want to end with this, is I took him back with a film crew, and some of the people that were there in the 1950s and 60s, 33,000 people used to go to that conference in Southern California. And the channeling that he did, but it wasn't channeling because he just left his consciousness. It was a strange voice, sounded like it was on radio, and it talked about Vladimir Putin in 2014. And I was in shock. I was going, no, he's not even in the news. Like, who cares? Like, why am I hearing this? 14. And I have the actual words. And the words were, we've got to come together as a species. It's called the end of separation. And I'm doing a whole series on those guys. Then I'm going to Latin America, what those guys told me. And it's individual research. For me to have to go back to the 1950s, to Adamski, Orfeo Angelucci, Howard Menger, Val Thorpe, all that stuff that we've thrown out, and then have a voice come out and talk about Vladimir Putin in 2014. And now it makes sense. But back then, somebody is watching us. Somebody is hoping we make it. Somebody is hoping we survive. And don't ask me who it is, but it's important that you look at all of it, not just science. You have to look at all the whole puzzle. And the problem, I think, in the United States, and I don't speak very much, I'm not invited, but I mean, the thing is this, is that if we all came together at a table and everybody put the piece that they studied, and we put all the pieces together, we get an overall picture. But when you have this kind of compartmentalization, you're never going to get to the truth.
Yeah. It's the oneness idea, separation and oneness. That's I think the main message that they have for us. Love and separation and oneness. That as long as you're separate, or the one expression was, whatever you separate from the divine and put into darkness, that same thing through co-resonance will drag you into darkness with it. What you damns you back. What you blesses you in return. To say that I am the light and you are, to say I am divine and you are not, is nothing more than the shadow pretending to be the light. And it's this idea that we are all divine. We're all segments of this thing. And I guess you and I volunteered before we came, that you volunteered that you were going to go around the world and stuff like that, the big mission and stuff. But again, it's like you and I could have been born, poor in a refugee camp in Africa, and we got to do this. I mean, what more could you ask for? That's why I was thinking the other day, like if you're 500 years from now and you get reincarnated, and somebody gives you a regression and you find out you were Paula Harris, it's like, holy cow, like what you enjoy this life, because I can't see you can possibly have a more exciting life than what you've had, even though it's been tough and you've been up against the female bias inside ufology, and that nobody wants to travel, nobody wants to read, and that people don't read your books. You've got all these books that have been written about your research, but people now, as I know, the same thing. They really don't read. But we're going to do the things that we do now that people will watch. Like a lot of people will watch this thing, and they'll learn, and we'll raise it a little bit, maybe even a couple of inches. We'll raise the consciousness, but we'll do the best we can, and that's all we can do, and not listen to the people who that have opinions, or people who don't have the evidence, because until you've actually experienced it, you can't you've only got an opinion. You got to listen to the people who have actually experienced the phenomena and experienced talking to the beings and the messages. This one that you talk about that Short had, which is exactly the message: oneness versus separation. You got to stop separation, that we're just getting more divided politically, and with religions and countries and stuff like that. The more you divide, the more you go to war. And if we all, like the Reagan thing, how I often wonder how the world would come together. If we were facing a threat from a nation, we'd all come together and realize that we're all one, that we're all children of God. That's what Reagan said, and that's exactly the message that I think is being put out by these beings. And I'm just honored to have known you and been part of your conferences and stuff like that. And I hope we can do a lot of stuff down the road in terms of raising consciousness, because we're both on the same page that research is important, but it's more than just the simple research of the clicks that people get on conspiracy theories and what the government knows. Like, who cares what the government knows? We want to figure out what's actually going on. I think you and I probably have a lot of stuff that the government would probably want, that they're struggling to figure this out as well, because the phenomena hasn't landed on the White House lawn. It's indirectly given us little hints as to what's going on, but you and I have struggled to do it, and at times it's tough because you're not getting paid for it. But I'm just so happy that you're willing to share this with me, and that you were there. I was like, whoa, Paula was there. It's like Paula's everywhere. It's like that's why I contacted you, because I heard about the ball, and then Paula was there. It's like, it's at the news conference. So I appreciate your coming in. So talk a little bit about some of the opinions, and then we'll sort of close it down there, and we'll put the links in
Please,
the links, and we'll put the link into your conference, which is in August.
oh, yeah, it's August, but I want you to put the links into the real live, scientific thing. And I
Yeah.
forgot to tell you, I was with Sid Goldberg, a guy who was there too. So
Sid was there too.
Sid was there too.
Did he do any interviews with any of these people?
I don't know, because they had their own deal. The guys were all, there.
Yeah,
And
you.
they had their own things going on, and I was like sitting way on the end and trying to cover it the best I can, taking notes as fast as I could. The
Wow.
And by the way, I want people to understand, the only reason I was part of the research group, not because I need to be on stage. I hate being on stage. I hate the whole, I
Yeah.
have to be behind the curtains. But I am part of the research group, and I was a woman, and that was the part that I thought, I'm part of the research. I'm giving information to the world. But Sid was there, Gaia was there. My colleague from Italy was emotional when I saw him. I hadn't 35 years I've worked with them, and my magazine in Italy is covering this. So they were texting me for photos. I got the photos for everybody. They can use them. They're out in the domain. So that's my job, just to cover the story. And I did. And not knowing even they were going to have a press conference. I just happened, it's coincidence, I happened to be there. But as far as what I do that would support my work is I have Patreon. And
Yeah.
you can talk to me on Patreon. And Patreon helps me put gas in my car, because there is no money here anywhere. In fact, it all came out of my pocket. I never was sponsored by anybody ever. But the other thing is, I love talking to people about consciousness. And Crestone, you did an amazing job. Everybody was stunned in May. But I will always have May, Memorial Day, and I will always have August. Next year, I've got Aaron Judkins, Gobekli Tempe, talking about his in-person research in Mount Arafat for the Noah's Ark, and for Gobekli Tempe. So I'm trying to do some ancient alien, and Desta will be with us again. So I love it in May, but August is my August 24th through 26th is the international with the Japanese and Julian Chameroy from Paris. And it will be, I'll talk about this too. I mean, I'm one of the speakers, and Cynthia Sue Larson. That's www.StarworksUSA.com. They have my master classes, my Patreon stuff, and the two, small, intimate conferences I do in Crestone. But if there's anything coming up, I'll be there.
Beautiful. Yeah, I would appreciate people use your Patreon, because I'll come on there. We may even do some stuff on the ball. We'll put it on Patreon. That we do stuff from time to time on there, and you've got other people that are on there. And you're like a former teacher. And that's your idea is that you're like training, you're putting this stuff out there, and so yours is almost like a workshop when you do these things. It's you have now you gone just to a couple speakers. It's more in depth. I'm very happy because I got to speak for like 3 hours, 4 hours, or whatever it was, and say what I wanted. And the people I appreciate. The other thing that if you go to Crestone that I was really amazed with was the questions that the people who came up to ask questions. I couldn't believe the quality of the people you had there. It was sort of like any of these people could lecture. I really didn't know who they were, but the stuff they were asking me indicated these are very, very well-read people that know actually what's going on. So you get that. You'll know that with conferences is that you not only get the lectures and stuff, that you actually get to meet people that you get to know year after year, and you go back because these are your friends, and your family won't listen to you, but these people will listen to you, and especially if you've had experiences that you can share. So uh, help Paula, because I know that this situation she's had with the money, she's sold most of what she had, and she had a couple houses and stuff like that. She's sacrificed her life to do this, and so any help that you can do on the Patreon front or going to the conferences is appreciated. And anytime I can help you, Paula, to do anything you want in terms of new subjects and stuff I'm working on, we can do it on Patreon, or we can do maybe people have questions for this. We can do one Patreon where we just take the questions that people have from this broadcast, and just do what we're doing. I'm doing the same thing you. I just believe that you got to raise the consciousness, and you talk about it. And I don't keep any secrets. People get very upset when I don't keep secrets, but it's basically like what if the Bible says, "What profiteth a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?" What good does it do if you and I figure it out and we don't tell people? So I'm with you in terms of education, in terms of educating people, and when people are ready, they'll pick it up. And I think we're actually making some headway, but we are sort of on the very edge of this unbelievable universe that tell people. I used to say 1,000 times more complex than what you think. I would say now it's 1,000,000 times more complex than you think. You have no clue once you start looking at this thing how complex it gets. It's not simply aliens who got lost in space. It's got to do with consciousness. It's got to do with the nature of reality. It's like they almost call it about indigestible. The one high-level CIA guy that got the 7-hour briefing, he said it's indigestible. That's why they won't disclose it, because he said you simply cannot drop this on. It is so complex that you just simply can't drop it on a population where most people don't read and they just sort of are on their phones and stuff like that. So you and I live in that beautiful world of realizing the world is almost like the more magnificent, not more magnificent than you think, it's more magnificent than you could ever believe.
Amazing. And Grant, I just love you. You and Colin Andrews and Stephen Greer, who is
Yeah.
very brave to keep going with all these, disclosure witnesses that he's dug up that are the actual people. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
And now Colin Andrews is not, he's got
uh,
physical condition, and he's still posting, he's still doing his little job that he came on Earth to do. And even with the conditions that he's in, and your condition is the financial thing, where you run these conferences, and as people don't really know, you can lose a lot of money on a conference if it turns south, and you got to put the money out of your own pocket and guarantee the hotels and stuff like that. So that's your condition, and I will always respect you for the fact that you sacrificed everything that you had to do this story, and hopefully you get a good place in heaven when you get there.
yeah, I want to be part of a cosmic, group of people. I just want to be, I just want to be part of a cosmos of exciting people.
Yeah.
And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do. And anytime you want to talk to me, anytime you want to cover any subject, because I have so many of them, you just let me know.
Yeah,
God, Grant, God bless you. Thank you so much.
yeah, we'll do that, and we'll leave it at that. And we're going to put the links in for your conference for these 3 videos that you say people should watch, which will give you information. And hopefully we can do this again soon if you're back in Mexico talk to Jaime, find out what the latest is, and we'll do an update on this where people can actually get the information because they're going to be scrambling for information, and you may be the only source that they have in terms of listening to it or being on Twitter and hearing a bunch of people making up stuff.
I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not.
So you're our spokesman now. You're our spokesperson, I should say. You're a spokesperson. You're on stage, and we are awaiting your next information as to what's because that's going to be my thing. Is going to like, I wonder what's going on now. What are they doing with the ball? Like in this sort of stuff. And you're in that thing where you go to Mexico every period of time, and that I'll be waiting for you to update me every month as to what they've discovered and where it's going, both with the mummies and with the ball, because these are two magnificent mysteries that people can say they've been solved. They have not solved anything. Absolutely. I'm not stupid. I wouldn't just fall off the turnip truck yesterday. Or as we say, I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night.
Yeah, well, let's see if we can get you directly with Jaime because you got to go to who's doing the work.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Although he's pretty busy. That's the thing. He's pretty. I'll tell you, have you ever heard the story I told about Jaime, the synchronicity story? I was in Mexico. I went on a cruise in Mexico. I went down the Caribbean side of Mexico there, stopped at all these different things. And I got off one cruise thing and we had gone in. There was a big hurricane and it knocked out the the thing in the main where we're supposed to go. So we went to this other town sort of across from the island. And we got off the cruise ship and walked onto the shore, and there was a one of these, what do they call them? The resort things. So I was in there and we went to get a beer at this little bar there. And all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, Grant, what are you doing here?" And I look and it says, "Charlie guy. He used to run the carpentry department at the University of Manitoba." And I said, "What are you doing here?" And then so he started talking and I said, "Do you come to Mexico all the time?" And he said, "No, it's the first time I've ever been out of Canada. I went to Minneapolis one time, but I've never been out of Canada. So my wife said we got to go somewhere. So we decided we're going to come here." And so I said, "That's pretty cool that I'd meet you here." And so we went back and then the next year he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I saw you in Mexico again." I said, "I wasn't in Mexico." He said, "Yeah, I saw you." And I said, "You did?" He said, "Yeah, I was watching TV and you're on TV with Jaime Maussan." It's like, it was like this, Jaime had done an interview with me with Laughlin and it's kind of this synchronicity. It's like again, and it's like so I was on TV when he's watching this Mexican TV. So that's where I say it's a weird world where you get these synchronicities and weird things that happen, and you just marvel at how magnificent and complex the world is. You just got to follow the data, follow the dots, as you say, like or how do you talk to a ball of light? And these are these kind of questions that nobody would ever think about. Where in our field, that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out it. We don't just take it as a story. We're trying to figure out like where did that thing come from? What is it? What's it trying to say? And so it's an exciting world to be in. It's just a little tough from time to time that you're up against a society that is into, and you can't blame them. They're, take the kid to soccer, pay your bills, all this kind of stuff, that they really are in a different world. And we are sort of the leaders of this leading edge that is comes down to the nature of reality that people really don't think about the nature of reality till they got 6 months to live and they find out they're going to die. Then they're scrambling around. You and I spend our entire lives trying to figure out why are we here, where are we going, and what are we supposed to be doing here? Why are we even here? And most people don't even do it. So we'll leave the stuff. You've got your data. Your data is going to Rice University after you pass all your material, and it is going to be going down in history. That how many people can leave their files, their personal styles to a university that will take it. I know the university here wouldn't take mine, and so I put it all online, and so my stuff is all online. But it's not often that you can. Your work is so important that a university wants to keep your stuff for history for people 500 years from now, that they'll go back and look at your material, that it wasn't lost. It was very valuable part of history.
thank you. Yes, that's where it is with Jacques Vallée, John Mack, Willie Strieber. But can I also add that, if you want to keep doing this story, Grant, I do have video from China of a sphere that came down. So I that you took this on, and I'm going to give you because I want to go back to what I was doing, but I do have video from China. And the great thing about Jaime Maussan, when I used to have Laughlin, is that he would come with 5 or 6 videos of the same thing,
Yeah.
different parts of the world. And How in the world are you going to figure it out unless everybody sends you video? And I found the truth by looking at this. People would give him a standing ovation. They wouldn't miss his presentation because it was coming in from all over the world.
Yeah.
Ufology is not American. And the thing is that, the thing that I saw when I was there was that this sphere in China. And I will give you that video footage. I don't know, I'll give you all of the ones that I got, but I don't know how you want to put it out there. But I do not have the technical expertise.
Okay.
Continue.
Well, if I have it ahead of time, I could put it on a Facebook on a PowerPoint presentation, and then you can just go through it. Especially, I didn't know there was one in China. I mean, that would be a new story where you can add a major piece to this thing, and we'll do that as a part of Patreon. We'll do it on Patreon. The people to help your situation in terms of paying your rent. And we'll go do this thing, and hopefully we can do some updates on the ball, because I'm sure that everybody's going to be asking what's the latest on the ball, what are people doing and stuff. So you have the opportunity to go there with your show. So let's do that. Let's do the China thing next. And
I don't know. I don't know about China. I'm just going to give you the video. But listen, Grant, I'm
Yeah.
going to call Mexico now to see if I can get you directly with Jaime, because I'm still second person. I mean, what do you call it? Second generation. I believe in going to the source. I do not believe second, third generation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can get you to have direct contact with Jaime. And you could do a quick, interview.
Yeah, a few minutes. He doesn't, because he's pretty busy. And yeah, and we can put that on your Patreon, or we can put it public or whatever, and we can do a little thing, because you're sort of on the leading edge. I mean, Gaia's going to do his Sid Goldberg's going to do it for Gaia, and Stephen Greer is going to do his documentary, but you have the story, and you can do it for the general public, where people. I've got fairly big audience, so you can put it to them, and I'm sure everybody's going to be interested in following the latest details of what's going on, even if it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. If there's some new development, we'll just get on for 5 or 10 minutes, talk about it, and put it out there.
Yeah, when he contacts you, though, say yes so that you can,
Yeah.
have the direct connection with him. I don't need to be there necessarily, but I really believe that you can go and put Jaime and what they've discovered and where this is going. Because I left on Saturday morning and they were still there, so I have no idea what all they decided to do. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for doing this.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.